Let's just see what it's like if I use my speakerphone.
Okay.
Okay, what does that sound like?
It sounds very echoey.
Yeah, okay.
So that's probably what you're experiencing with mine right now. So
yeah, as I suspected. I just wanted to double check.
What
if it's a little easier,
yeah,
I'll be moving papers around, and
that's fine.
And, I'll have one hand, my right hand, to do that.
Okay. Well, I think from this end, my voice will be okay because I'm right beside the recording device, so it shouldn't be a problem. And your voice is coming through very clearly, so
great.
I think we're good. So
okay.
All right, let's see if we can do this. Could you?
Sorry that it could not be on Zoom, but it's really impossible where we are, where we live.
Oh, don't worry about it. Yeah, I'm sure this will be fine. It's just to give a bit more stronger connection to the work and give people a bit more information about the artists and stuff. So, it's not. Yeah, and it's the first time we've ever tried anything like this. So, maybe in 2 years everybody will have high-speed internet connection. That's the promise now, isn't it? So, we'll see what happens. So, let's. Hi, Karen. Very nice to meet you. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself? First off, congratulations on being chosen for the Best in Show for Digital Media and New Print Media. It's a big show. There are 135 artists, 355 prints, and 21 from 21 countries. So the jury had a very tough time going through all those prints and selecting winners, but congratulations. So could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Okay. Well, I was born in Cornwall, Ontario, not so far from Ottawa. It's only an hour and a half away south. For those people that are not from the Ontario province, they might not realize that how close Cornwall is to Ottawa and how close it is to Montreal. It's only 1 hour away west of Montreal. Mm-hmm. And I was the oldest of 4 sisters, and I studied French and English in elementary schools and high schools. And most of the people that I knew when I grew up were English, Scottish, Irish, French descent, except for one family that was Chinese, and they ran the Chinese restaurant downtown. Their son happened to be my high school art teacher, Mr. Rod Chan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I was awarded as an Ontario scholar when I was in high school. So that's my background.
Was that sort of your first sort of encouragement in getting involved in art, and what led you on your path to becoming an artist?
Absolutely. In grade 9, I was able to take art, and my teacher provided me with art materials for the first time, from paints to clay to pencil drawings, and actually I won a prize there in our newspaper. I won first prize for a drawing that I did, and I thought, oh, I'm 16. Maybe even though I might have majored in math and science in high school, maybe I should think about having a future in art, mm-hmm. and which I did.
And what training did you go on to pursue after that?
I went to Queen's University, and I studied with Carl Haywood and Jennifer Dixon, mm-hmm. Receiving a BFA, first class in printmaking. I then went to Alberta to get my graduate degree at the University of Alberta, which I finished in 1982.
Okay. And would you study there with Walter Jewell and people like that?
I studied with, my supervisor was Roger Sylvester.
Okay.
He was a British artist.
Mm-hmm.
And I studied with Linda Osborne from Australia, and Walter Jewell, originally from the U.S.
Okay. What initially attracted you to printmaking?
Well, at the beginning, it was a perfect opportunity to combine handwork and photography together. I really fell in love with the beauty of the rich blacks of intaglio and the pure glowing whites of the paper and the glistening white wet surface of the paper. It suited my sensibility. It was tactile, and it was a very slow process. And the relationship between the quality of the light of the photograph and the solidity of mass volume in sculpture really attracted me.
How long have you been making prints?
That might give away my age.
Well.
I've been doing prints for 43 years.
Almost as long as me, I would hasten to add. So, yeah. And how long, I mean, I'm sure there was a process in your development where you arrived at a point where you sort of felt, all right, I've got this now. I understand this medium. Could you describe how long it took you to get to that point where you felt like you were in command of the medium?
Well, there's always how people feel about the work and how the artist feels. Mm-hmm. I've been successful working in printmaking since graduate school, since the early 80s, winning awards and being accepted in international printmaking shows. Since my work is always evolving, I feel pushed to do new work that keeps up my creative aspirations.
Okay. And do you work alone? Do you have a studio at home, or do you work in a collective studio?
Immediately after graduate school, my husband, Walter Jewell, who also happens to be a printmaker, he's really not that well known, but
I think he's a little bit known, yes.
Yeah, I think he's quite well known, but he's my husband, and we've been together for 41 years now. But straight after graduate school, we set up a home and printmaking studio 40 kilometers southeast of Edmonton, 1 hour away by car. However, we are also members of the Society of Northern Alberta Print Artists, SNAP, in Edmonton, and we participate in the events and the openings, but we do not print in the workshop.
Okay. Well, I think a lot of artists, especially in rural areas, find themselves in that situation. So it's. I know when I graduated from University of Regina, I was in the same situation. So yeah, it's hard to find any facilities once you get outside of the university situation. So you've won the prize for digital media or new print media. Could you tell me what attracts you to that approach to printmaking?
Well, actually, initially, the possibility to work larger and mural size attracted me. Because I was working in etching, and I had, probably the largest prints I did were about 7 feet tall by 42 inches, but digital, I could work up to, the largest prints I did were 7 feet by 17 feet. I did 2 of them that size. And in the last 13 years, since I started working in digital, I've done 7 murals. But I've also completed many other series in digital of a more conventional size. Okay.
Do you find the digital gives you more flexibility in terms of how you create your work?
Because I had such a long analog background, it was a pleasant surprise to be able to do certain changes so quickly, and I know everybody tends to agree with that. But it also offered me other options, and It's been a very pleasant undertaking to work in digital. I keep thinking of new ways to use it, and I'm not kind of stuck in a groove doing certain kind of murals. And if you look at my website, you can see that in the last 13 years I've done very different kind of work with digital.
Yeah. So in a large way, it's really sort of provided you with whole new avenues of expression then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You said it better than I did.
I got lucky, yeah. With the print that you have in the show, I mean, obviously I could hold it up and show it to you here, but I can't because we're talking on the phone. But it will be up alongside the link to this recording. And what would you like to say about the print that's in the show? What can you tell us about the image and how it was developed?
Okay, very simply, the images are made up of cutout forms that are based on silhouettes of trees of the Boreal forest near my studio. These are like linear drawings, and they are combined to create sculptures, essentially, which are then tossed and positioned in a corner of a room. The feeling of movement and jostling gives the impression that the forms are alive with energy. They might be interpreted as the contortions of the human psyche in an ever-changing and challenging world.
Okay. So the work, in a sense, I guess you're drawing from nature to a certain degree, but then you're sort of transforming and manipulating those elements through the digital as well as through sort of collage almost?
Yes, well, I'm making things. That's
Yeah.
what I do now. I make things that I then turn into sculptures that I then, through light, transform again, and then I photograph them, and then I transform them again through Photoshop. So it goes through some people would say, why don't you just do sculpture? Why make them go from 3 dimensions to 2 dimensions and all these processes? But like I said earlier about being drawn to photo etching, I actually like processes that slow me down, and I can go through these different stages, and that's when I find something inventive and new. If I did it all at once, I think I would, personally speaking, I think I would repeat myself.
Okay. So just to sort of understand a little more, it sounds like sort of a lot of your inspiration comes from the process of making it, but then also you're strongly influenced by the nature that surrounds you in the countryside. Would that be correct, or am I way off base?
That would be my recent work.
Okay.
Once again, if you see my website,
Yeah.
for about 25 years I worked with the figure, with female nudes, some of them murals, some of them smaller, but creating psychological tableaus, talking about the environment. So I would say only in the last 2 years that I became kind of inward and just looked at my surroundings for inspiration.
Okay. And in terms of self-expression, I guess, do you find printmaking helps you not find your voice, but gives you a vehicle to express your voice? Is it a useful medium in that regard?
Absolutely. Ever since I took my first class from Carl Haywood as an undergraduate, I loved painting and drawing up to that point, but suddenly I thought, I could do drawing and painting and sculpture and photography and make a print.
Mm-hmm.
And so my expression has developed through a vocabulary of tableau photography. And similar to film, I found my voice at the meeting point of the still image and the filmic narrative. So you can quote me on that because I'm reading this.
Okay.
Together, the series cornered and encourage a filmic interpretation, because when you see them in a series, they're moving, one to the next. Combining digital with Chine-Collé with Atsumata paper brings new and old techniques together.
Okay. So would you say that your image drives the process to a certain extent? Like whether you're working with the human form or with elements from nature, like from the landscape, or does the process drive the image?
I would say, firstly, it's the idea.
Okay.
It's like I have an idea, and then I think, how am I going to do this? And then I sort of set up a process for me to go through, and then I decide at which point that the work is either garbage or it's worthy of being shown.
Okay. Well, I think in terms of the work that you have in the mini print show here, I think that's very really good background information for anybody who's going to look at the work. Just out of curiosity, what inspired you to submit work to the mini print show in Ottawa?
Well, I never tried to do a mini print before. I thought I wasn't capable of it. But I don't know, when was it, last year? I thought it might be fun to try. It was January and February, and I had a free time, and I sent to a couple of shows, and although I've shown my prints around the world, I've never shown my prints in Ottawa. So it seemed another good idea to participate in the Ottawa show.
Yeah. Well, like I said, there's a lot of artists in the show, and it takes people literally. You can spend hours in there if you really want to look at all the prints. If you were to give advice to artists who maybe haven't worked in printmaking at all, but might be thinking about it, what would you tell them?
I would suggest that they take as many different art courses as possible, and if they have an affinity for printmaking, then they should take as many courses as possible in silk screen, etching, calligraph, woodcut, and lithography.
Okay. Well, that's sort of all the questions that I have. Is there anything that you want to add?
Well, you asked, one of the questions you had down was, did you have support from your family when you were starting out?
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's an interesting question. So, do you want me to give that answer?
Sure.
Okay. Well, my parents told me at a very young age that university education was important, and that whatever field I was interested in pursuing would have their total emotional support. With the financial support of the Canada Student Loans and Awards, and work as an apprentice with Carl Haywood, Jennifer Dixon, and Walter Jewell, I was able to attend 7 years of university that I wholly enjoyed.
Well, that's good. My parents were a little less supportive than yours were. So, but that's fine.
You're a man, right?
Yeah, I was expected to do something more practical, but at least in their eyes. But yeah.
No, my parents never. They thought, you'll do well at whatever you do, Karen. Mm-hmm. So I had a lot of encouragement, but they did not. They did not support me financially. I had to make my way that way, and it didn't hurt me in any way. If anything, it made me available, and my teachers knew there that I needed more financial assistance, and I ended up being their printmaking technicians and printers. So I learned more because of that, because I had that one-to-one experience with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I worked as a printmaking technician at Alberta College of Art, and got to see the work of a dozen different print artists and how they all worked, and it's a very enriching kind of experience. So I guess if you're giving advice to young people, become a print technician for somebody and you'll go far. So anyway.
All absolutely.
Well, thanks very much for agreeing to take part in this. I guess it's sort of a little experiment for this year's edition of the Mini Print Biennale. I appreciate it very much, and congratulations again on the prize that you won. And look forward to hopefully seeing you, and if you are passing through Ottawa, stop by and say hello. So.
Well, I was very thrilled to receive the award. It came at a very good time in my life.
Well, good. Well, we didn't know that, but I'm glad it worked out that way.